Hey everybody, welcome to the Mojo Sessions. This is your online television channel that gives you access to some of Australia's best business leaders. Now these are some people you may not know, but they'll be talking about stuff that you have to know. We'll be talking to business leaders about what gave them real creative mojo in and out of the workplace. We'll be talking about brand, strategy, leadership, culture, creativity, all sorts of different topics. And tonight we're very pleased to have a very special guest. Michelle Haber, Professor Michelle Haber, is the Executive Director of Children's Cancer Institute of Australia, based here in Sydney. Michelle, it's such a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Thanks, Gary.
Let's start from the start.
Yep.
What led you to a life in science?
I'd always loved discovery. I used to be out in the garden. I'd be sort of having bugs and caterpillars and things on my hands. My brother and sister both did science at university. They were 8 and 10 years older than me. I had a wonderful inspirational science teacher at school. I thought about doing science like the others. I toyed with doing medicine, but back then it was 1973 and I thought I would have to choose between medicine and having family and children. So I ended up doing clinical psychology because it looked very interesting and I thought it would be a fun thing to do and maybe...
Of course.
Clinical
Clinical psychology sounds like a lot of fun,
yeah,
doesn't it?
well, it did, and I thought it would be sort of could be a great part-time ongoing activity if I had family and kids. I did psychology. As I went through the course, I found that the subjects that I didn't like were the least rigorous ones, the counselling, the ones where I couldn't actually touch and feel it. And I began to realise that what I loved was testing hypotheses, finding things out, being able to have an answer. I guess I'm a sort of a black and white type of a person. I'm not very good at grey. And I did my honours in psychology, but I did it in animal learning, actually, where you could design experiments and test how decisions were being made. And I actually started my PhD in that because I realised that I loved research. It suited me. I was pretty good at it. And it was 6 months into my PhD that I thought, this is a really great career, but what I'm doing isn't really great. I would love to do something more medically oriented. I would love to do something where I can make a tangible difference to people's lives and I'll be able to have a real impact. And so on a whim one afternoon, I wandered over to the medical faculty, and life is very strange. And I sort of looked at the board and thought, physiology, no, pharmacology, no, pathology, that sounds good. And I walked up and the secretary there said, would you like to see the professor? And by sheer chance, he was a new head of school and he was looking to recruit bright students, and I started my PhD in the chemical causes of cancer within about 2 weeks. He sent me away and said, think about it. Wow. But I came back. To me, it sounded like a wonderful opportunity, and I did my PhD in chemical causes of cancer. And in the final months of my PhD, I was overseas, and I got a phone call from my supervisor saying, I've just been offered the directorship of a new entity that's been established by parents and doctors of children with cancer. Would you like to have a postdoctoral position there? And it was, it just seemed like it was meant to be, because it was exactly when I changed to the medical PhD, this was exactly the sort of role I hoped for. And I started there was him and there was me and there was one technician and there was a PhD student. We all, the student and the technician, still work there together with me, and together we've built this institute. Wow. Now I'm the executive director. So it's been I've been in the same place it'll be 30 years in January. Wow. Which is a long time.
So you started when you were obviously 12, 13
Indeed,
years old.
indeed, yes.
Something that we hear a lot about research for cancer. We hear a lot about raising money for it. We hear what a dreadful disease it is. One thing that I find we don't hear about is how we're going with it. Now, having spoken to you before we started the show, we're making ground, aren't we?
We're making unbelievable progress. I feel enormously privileged to be working in the area of children's cancer, which has had magnificent success. So barely 50 years ago, at a time when I would have been a child, Gary, the survival rate for children's cancer was virtually zero.
Yeah.
And it was in the early 1960s that what we now take for granted, chemotherapy, was first pioneered in children with acute leukemia. And those children went into remission when treated with chemotherapy, and that was the start of the understanding that cancer was a treatable disease. And from that, within the space of 15 or 20 years, that survival rate had gone from 0 to about 50%, and now it's around 75%.
Wow.
So it's one of the great success stories of modern medicine, actually, in 50 years. So about 75% of kids are cured now. That still means that there's 1 in 4 children who are still not making it.
Still not there yet, are we?
We are still not there, and one of the real problems is that with that success comes a new challenge, because the drugs that are used to treat these kids are very, very toxic, and the therapy is toxic, and a significant proportion of these children are left with lifelong side effects of their treatment. So our goal now is not only to cure the remaining 25% of kids with cancer, but also to give them quality of life by using better, safer, more targeted drugs. So it's a big challenge to do that, but I absolutely believe that this is a goal that one day we will cure every child with cancer. I think that's absolutely believable now.